Hello, everyone. Here we go again with our monthly lecture. I am Jacinta Carvalho, and I'm here to talk with you about inner transformation. I'm using the uh, ideas of the teachings Jesus brought to this world as a guide for self-awareness because the words Jesus gave us 2000 years ago were really revolutionary, and they bring a very important message that we can think about and use in nowadays because they are very, very modern. And you will see during this lecture and during the topics we will follow how important it is to broaden our vision and understand things in another perspective. So, today we will reflect on the importance of inner transformation in the light of Jesus' teachings and the Spiritism, understanding it as a continuous process of self knowledge and moral transformation. The topics we will follow, more or less, will be what is inner transformation and why is it necessary, the connection between this and spiritual evolution, the teaching of the higher spirits, also the teachings of Jesus. So I chose five different topics from the message he brought to us about the kingdom of God inside ourselves, where the treasure is, our heart is also there, about faith, about the prejudice we have toward others, the influence of thoughts and feelings, the challenge and resistance of the path we will follow, some practical tools for daily life, and then we will conclude talking about the inner transformation as a path of light. What is inner reform? I put this word because this is the word most known on the Spiritism books. Reform is transformation or change. Here, in the next slide, you will see. Inner transformation is a daily practice of self awareness, moral growth, and aligning thoughts and actions with higher values. So, this is what we are talking about during all this lecture. Then I brought you a message from the book Gospel According to Spiritism, when Kardec says the true Spiritists are recognized by moral transformation and by the efforts they make to tame their bad inclinations. So he is not saying that we need to be perfect. We need to be aligned with everything we study. We will be recognized by our moral transformation. And only by making efforts to change and be a better person, this is already the way we are following Jesus' teachings. And then I use this sculpture as a message as well. The name of this sculpture is Expansion. It was built in 2004 and it was in New York, but it became a symbol of uh, inner transformation because you can see the cracks on the sculpture, and then they bring the inner light, the spiritual light. As Jesus said, you are light, let your light shine. And this is what we expect to learn, reflecting on these topics and understanding better what he said. Like I said before, the inner transformation is this daily practice of self awareness. It is the process of moral and spiritual transformation of oneself. Let me just remove this from my screen. A change that begins in the inner world, thoughts, feelings, intentions, and only afterwards appears outside. It means the process of spiritual transformation will not come from the external world. It will come from our thoughts, feelings, intentions from our choices. That's why it's so important to know ourselves better. It is not just about behaving better, but about illuminating the heart. More than just looking good, it is about purifying motivations, healing our wounds, and working through pride, fear, and selfishness. You can see that on these topics, you don't hear anything about others, only about ourselves. Because the inner transformation is obvious on the title, it concerns each one of the individuals. And I cannot expect others on my side or books or knowledge that comes from outside to be the transformation I need. I have to be silent, like it says here. I have to be aware of my motivations and my wounds, and I have to work through my weak sides like pride, fear, and selfishness. Then, inner transformation is also a continuous choice, not a one time event. Small daily decisions, sorry, to be more honest, to be more serene, to be more compassionate. It means it's one step at a time. Every day you have to make the right choice. Every day you have to choose each one of these behaviors. It is also cooperating with God's action within us, allowing grace and conscience to prune, cleanse, and make our way of living and relating blossom. We have to see that this is a constant work, and sometimes we might think this is very slow, this is very difficult. It's because we cannot change everything in one day. We have to, like a flower or like a garden that we take care of, we will see that every day is a little bit of work that will make the whole difference in the end. And why is this inner transformation necessary? Because evolution is not only intellectual, it is above all moral. It is not enough to accumulate information. We can be very intelligent and still repeat the same patterns of egoism, defense, and escape. True evolution happens when knowledge actually changes how we feel and react. Like I used to say in other lectures, I will tell you a little further in the next slides. There is a huge difference in between knowledge, intellectual knowledge, and moral knowledge. And we will see what is this difference. We cannot truly change the world without changing our inner self. Psychologically, we tend to project onto the world what we haven't yet recognized in ourselves. Things that we don't know we have or we are, we inconsciently project to the outside world, and others will see this in us more than ourselves. What annoys me outside often has roots inside. Inner reformation is the path that leads from they must change. That's what we usually say. They must change the others. Then we have to change and say, what in me can be adjusted today? Because when we learn a little bit more about that, which Jung and the psychologists, they say a lot about uh, the shadows we project into the world. These are parts of ourselves that we don't know very well, but our behaviors will show. And when others look at us, they will see this behavior much better than we can see. That's why it's important to understand that the others' behaviors or things people do that annoys you, they will have roots on yourself because people are like mirrors to us. Then collective problems are born from individual states of mind. Fear, greed, intolerance, and the need to control begins in hearts and minds. They are not things from the outside. When each person begins to heal their own inner conflicts, we effectively reduce violence, abuse, and injustice around us, because this is a the society is a reflection of the individuals that form this society. The society as a collective body, it's not one single thing. It's made of each one of us together, and our behaviors, our choices, our way of thinking, our judgments, everything will impact the society. So if we foster fear, greed, intolerance, how can we expect others to be different? Then, as always, the change starts in ourselves. And here are the pillars of this inner transformation: love for others, meaning active goodness and concrete charity; humility, recognizing our limits, willing to learn from God, from life, and from others; forgiveness, freeing ourselves from resentment, is a way of self healing; faith, trusting in God's timing and the wisdom of divine laws; patience, accepting processes, respecting our own rhythm and then that of the others. All these points are very important because they will invite us to look in a different way than what society always tells us. They don't teach us in school or in life to forgive, to have patience, to be humble. But in fact, these options are the only ones that will be able to change this world, because they will change a little bit at a time, each one of us. Because when we forgive, for example, we free ourselves from resentment. And when we don't forgive, we continue carrying this bitter feeling and this anger and everything that separates us from the others. And we simply forget that the problems that others cause us may be the same problems that they think we cause to them, because each one of us have things to adjust, to improve, and to change constantly. We are not perfect, not at all. So we have to learn to see the others with the same eyes we see ourselves. Then it comes to this part, like I mentioned before, about the difference between intellect and moral knowledge. The teaching of the highest spirits, they say, the first thing Kardec says on this chapter 6 of the Gospel according to Spiritism is: Spiritists love one another. This is the first teaching. And the second teaching is educate yourselves. By the way, I think it's important for us to understand why we say the gospel according to Spiritism. Gospel is a word that was created from the sayings back in the United States at the beginning of last century, because people reunited on the churches to praise God and to pray and to chant and to sing. And they used to say they would go to listen to God spell, to what God said, because it was in the Bible, and the Bible was the most important book people had to follow, both in Lutherans and uh, Catholics, all the Christian religions. So they were listening to God spell. And when they started pronouncing these in the wrong way, it became gospel. And God's spell, or the word of God, came from the Greek word evangelion. Evangelion meaning good news. In the time of Jesus, they used to say, let's spread the good news. Let's spread the word of the kingdom of God. And this good news, the word that represents this in Greek, which was a very important language 2000 years ago, is Evangelion. So that's why Kardec created the book Evangelion, or the Gospel according to Spiritism, because then he brought with his pedagogic mind, because he was a professor, he tried to have a vision or a perspective, an understanding of the words Jesus brought to us through the lenses of Spiritism, trying to put the teachings of the higher spirits, comparing or concluding or complementing the words Jesus said and that are present in the Bible and all the evangelions in many different languages. So, Spiritism invites us to change ourselves using two ways. One, like we can say, one wing we need is love one another, working on the heart, developing empathy, forgiveness, patience, respect for oneself and for others. Because without love, knowledge turns into coldness, judgment, and spiritual pride. And the other wing we need to fly, hypothetically, is educate ourselves, working on consciousness, studying the gospel, understanding the law of cause and effect, understanding how the mind and emotions work, because without light in our understanding, we automatically repeat the same patterns and make the same mistakes. That's why it's so important to have both sides working. Not only the intellect, the knowledge, and the books and the readings and the study, but also the heart, loving one another and forgiving and practicing the teachings of Jesus. When mind and heart walk together, we will develop both wings, like I just used this metaphor. When mind and heart don't work together, we can see like a butterfly with one wing. We will not be able to fly. And in the gospel, Kardec also said the message from the spirits is between intellect and love, which one do you think is most important? They say if you have love, if you learn to forgive, if you learn to have patience, if you learn to help others, love will have a higher weight than only intellect. If you only have intellect, it will lack more than if you only have love. Because even if you don't have the knowledge, the intellectual part, you will help others. You will be a good person. You will be a better person every day. So you have to combine both and you have to focus on both. But this was the opinion they had. Study without love generates hardness. Love without study may get lost in illusions and dependencies. True inner transformation happens when we understand better in order to love better, and love more in order to apply better when what we understand. That's the formula, if we can say something like that. So the connection between inner change and spiritual evolution is that each small inner victory represents progress of the soul. Every time we choose forgiveness instead of resentment, honesty instead of masks, serenity instead of explosions, something inside us is reorganized. Spiritually, these small victories change the soul vibes, untie old knots, and prepare more harmonious encounters in the future. Reincarnation offers us the chance to start again with more wisdom. We do not come back to Earth from zero. We bring tendencies, talents, and challenges from other experiences. Inner change means using this incarnation, this life opportunity we have now in our hands, to correct our excesses, to balance our debts, and to develop virtues that were still undeveloped. Or we think it's beautiful to be honest. We think it's beautiful to be patient or to be humble or to be uh, caring. But sometimes we are not able to do all these things yet. So develop these virtues that were still there, undeveloped, is one of our tasks in this incarnation. Each one of us will have special things to concern more than others. Some of us will need more patience or to develop more patience. Some of us will need to develop more courage. And this will depend on the needs we have on this incarnation. So instead of seeing difficulties as punishments, we see these difficulties as pedagogical opportunities for growth. And this is on the Spirit's book, question 781, 785, and others. You can study this and you can find much more information about this topic. Then, inner transformation has no end. It is a continuous and liberating process. There is no point at which we can say, I am spiritually finished. I hope we could understand this because it's very important. Sometimes I meet people that they are saying, oh, I think this is my last incarnation and I don't have to come back to Earth anymore. I'm sorry to say, but this is really, I don't know anybody that is in this point. When you study the Spirit's book, you will see that we are in process of evolution and we are still very far away from this perfection. So we cannot imagine that investing on the inner transformation work, we will think, okay, I am spiritually finished. I learned everything I needed to learn. The soul is always in an improvement process. The good news, the more we advance, the lighter the path becomes. Patterns that once enslaved us lose strength, and we experience an inner freedom that depends less and less of external circumstances. The Gospel according to Spiritism has a chapter talking about that, which is chapter 17, Be Perfect. And the other chapter 25 is Seek and You Will Find. You can go deeper on this information on these chapters. So let's start with Jesus' teachings. The words we will repeat here are from the Bible, but then we will bring another layer, which is the interpretation that Kardec did with the spiritual knowledge, and also a little bit of psychological layers. So one of these teachings is once, when questioned by the Pharisees about when the kingdom of God would come, Jesus replied, the kingdom of God does not come visibly, nor will people say, here it is or there it is, for indeed the kingdom of God is within you. When we think of changing our life, we usually think of external change. A new job, a new city, a new relationship, a new year on the calendar. It is essential to understand that all true transformation begins from the inside out. If I change places, but I carry the same beliefs, the same fears, and the same reaction patterns, soon I will recreate the same scenario with new characters. It doesn't matter if you move from Norway to China or from Brazil to India. If you carry the same beliefs and fears and traumas and problems inside yourself, you will at the beginning feel, oh, nice, because everything is different around me, the environment is different. But then suddenly you will realize that everything is repeating. You are attracting the same kind of people, you are living the same challenges because you are yourself. You didn't change anything. And that's why life truly transforms when I renew how I interpret situations, when I work on my wounds and responsibilities, when I choose to respond in a new way. to what used to make me repeat the same story. Asking the same question and expecting a different answer is impossible. So, if I want things to be different, I have to respond in a different way. I have to behave differently. I have to learn a little bit more about myself. I have to admit my fails. I have to admit if I am selfish, if I am too proud, if I am lazy, if I am envy things from others, whatever. We have to learn and work in ourselves. Inner change is this. Instead of just changing the scenery, I allow a new consciousness to be born in me. Then the outer world inevitably begins to reflect that inner change. That's why it's so important. The next teaching is do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moths and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moths and rust do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Then we go to the priorities of the heart. When Jesus speaks of treasure, he is speaking of the spiritual center of our life. What our existence revolves around, what occupies our thoughts, fears, and deepest desires. When he talks about treasure, he is not talking about money or any kind of material values. He is talking about what do I really value? That's the question. What is your most important possession, or what is the thing you most desire? Inner change begins when we realize that sometimes we invest energy in treasures that do not nourish the soul, that are fragile and temporary. We will see. Example of misguided treasures. Constant need for approval, for example. Living to please others, fearing displeasing them, measuring our worth by other people's opinions. Spiritually, it is as if our God were the gaze of others. It means that everything we do, we are constantly waiting for approval or checking if others will say, is it good? Is it not good? Do you like it? Or did I do well? Like if we were spiritual children. So this constant need for approval is putting a wrong value in or a treasure in the wrong place. Material accumulation without meaning as well. Working without rest, buying compulsively, using possessions as protection against fear. The gospel reminds us moth and rust destroy. None of these possessions will cross the grave. This is important that we learn as well, because then we go to the psychological layer of these misguided treasures. Because not everybody has these problems, constant need for approval or material accumulation without meaning. This is not saying against being rich or seeking a better life or making more money to have more comfort. That's normal. It's only that you cannot put this on the first place in your life. And another example of misguided treasures will be needing to be right instead of choosing peace, entering endless disputes, arguing over details, maintaining discussions that only feed the ego. This is very common in our world. People that start talking about something and arguing and discussing and insisting with others, trying to force their way of seeing life or their ideas upon others, which is impossible. Everyone has a different way to see life. Also, seeking outer beauty and not depth, caring more about image than inner truth. Spirituality invites us to care for the body, and appearance, yes, but without forgetting that the most lasting shine is that our character, which is very difficult to give more importance to, living in a world like we live now, constantly revolving around social media and influencers and celebrities and all this stuff and the patterns of beauty that they seek, which are many times impossible. Uh, Caring more about this than inner truth will make us to be shallow, will make us to be always dissatisfied and always sad because we will never find or meet these kind of patterns. Then we have an option, which is reorienting the treasure. Inner transformation is changing where we place our heart. For example, we can change pride to humility, recognizing we are travelers, learning with God, life, and others. Change your pride means you will see that you are not more important than others. You will make mistakes the same way as the others. You will be wrong sometimes. You will not have the truth all the time. So instead of being proud of everything and thinking yourself as above the others, you will develop the humbleness. Resentment, you can change for forgiveness, freeing the heart from the weight of past offenses, trusting divine justice and the law of cause and effect will make you feel free. When you forgive, remember, when you forgive, you are not benefiting the other with your forgiveness. You are benefiting yourself first because you are releasing a weight that was inside of your heart, and that was making your life bitter and difficult sometimes. When you forgive, this is the best thing you can do to yourself, not only to the other. Maybe the other will not even forgive you. It doesn't matter. But you forgive and you will be free of this weight. You can also change indifference for compassion. Allowing the pain of others to touch you will transform your egoism into empathy. When you learn to put yourselves into other people's shoes, you will start seeing the world in a different way. Because instead of thinking you suffer more than others, your life is more difficult than others, when you allow compassion to grow inside you, you will have the empathy and see that sometimes others are suffering much more and enduring much better than you. And also changing the appearances for virtues. When we begin to value God's presence more than applause, our hearts find peace. And little by little, the treasure ceases to be something outside of us and becomes the presence of God within us, as Jesus himself proclaimed. This is very beautiful. I know how hard it is to change our faults, our fails, and our difficulties. But that's the daily exercise we are inviting you to do with this information. You will see in the end. The next teaching is if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you will tell this mountain, move from here to there, and nothing will be impossible for you. This is very known. The power of faith in this inner transformation, inner change, or inner reform. The biblical messages is that faith, even if small and seemingly insignificant, like a mustard seed, which is very, very small. Here you can see, I always wanted to see a mustard seed. Here it is between the fingers. It's very, very, very small. So even if your faith is small and apparently insignificant, like a mustard seed, it is powerful if it is true and genuine, and its size is secondary to its quality and the courage it inspires. the ability to accomplish the impossible. This is the message in this saying of Jesus. The image of moving a mountain or a tree illustrates that with true faith, nothing is impossible, meaning that you can move mountains of problems, emotional difficulties, challenges that you have because some conditions. If you have faith, no matter if big or small, what matters is the quality of this faith and the intensity you have. Then you can change many, many things in your life. And also, the message brings the idea of faith as a seed. The parable of the mustard seed also highlights the potential for growth. Just as a small seed can give rise to a large tree, faith can grow and bear fruit from a humble beginning. So don't worry if you think your faith is too small. I don't know how to have faith, or faith is something difficult for me. Start small. Start every day with a little bit of different attitude, a different choice, and you will see that your faith will grow like we use to have the metaphor of a plant. You will put the seed on the floor and you will not imagine that you will put all the water the seed will need at once. You will put a little bit every day, and then it needs the sun, it needs the photosynthesis, it needs the shade as well. It needs time. So your faith also needs time to develop. But don't give up of having faith because you think it's not enough. One day it will be enough, but you start small and work on that, develop this faith day by day. Today, psychology and neuroscience help to translate these messages from Jesus because it will give us other way to see the same words. For example, in psychology, a healthy faith is similar to the internal locus of control, the perception that with God's grace and our effort, something within us can act and choose instead of merely reacting to the world. You see, the psychology teaches this as well. When you have faith in something higher above yourself, and also you understand that your effort will make the whole difference, you will not be a mere spectator of your life. You will not be somebody that is just seeing life passing through. You will be reacting and acting with the world and the people around yourself. The self efficacy is also the belief that we are capable of learning, changing, and remaking, even if gradually. It's the same idea of the seed growing every day. In other words, faith is not denying reality. It's not believing that we are not condemned uh, to always be the same. It is on the opposite. It is not denying reality, but is believing that we are not condemned to always be the same. We can change. We can change every day a little bit until we change everything we need. In neuroscience, this concerns the neuroplasticity of our neural connections. They reorganize themselves as we repeat thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. When we sincerely nurture the idea, I can change, there is something greater sustaining me, we activate circuits linked to motivation, to hope, and self regulation. This reduces the feeling of powerlessness and favors choices that are more consistent with inner transformation. For example, pausing before reacting, asking for forgiveness, persisting in a new habit. You can see that the teachings of Jesus 2000 years ago, what is written in the Evangelion, the good news, gospel, the God spell, and Kardec interpreted with the spirit's point of view, broadening this vision comes to the same things that psychology and neuroscience, which is the most modern science we have, they say the same thing. When your choices are consistent with your inner transformation, you will reduce the feeling of powerlessness. You will trust that there is another power coming from outside, which we think is God, and God is present inside ourselves. So we will learn to pause, to breathe, to ask forgiveness, and to insist in new habits and create new neural connections, create new paths in our minds. Because normally we only repeat what we already know. We do the same thing again and again. And when we try to change, suddenly we are back to the same habits and the same options we had before. Because changing a habit means discipline. You have to persist and you have to be conscious that you are, oh no, I'm doing the same thing again. Let me try a new option for that. And then the next day, you will go back to the same things you already knew. And then you choose again consciously. I will do it different now. Until one day, this will become your new habit. And that's how things work. So when we say that we can apply an active faith, not as an escape, but as a proactive force, we can explain it like this. Faith is not fantasizing that God will do everything for me. Faith is trusting that God dwells within me, and therefore every small gesture or change has meaning and effect, even if no one sees it. Inner change is aligning external behavior with this inner presence, starting to act as if we were already perfect, even when we still are imperfect. If the kingdom is within us, we don't need to wait for the family to change, for the country to change, for the year to change, to start changing ourselves. Everything is inside us. So when we combine faith, psychological awareness, and an understanding of how the mind works, we realize that inner transformation is not magic, but it is not impossible either. It is a path made of small daily choices sustained by greater confidence. That's the real magic. Okay, another one of Jesus' teachings say, why do you see the speck in your brother's eye, but do not notice the log or the plank in your own eye? It's much easier to see other people's problems than our problems, right? This concerns projection and judgment, self criticism in love. Psychologically, we call projection this tendency to see in others what we do not want to recognize in ourselves. It is easier to point out the error of others than to face our own shadow. In the inner transformation process, Jesus' invitation is to change the focus of our eye, to move away from the accuser stance and adopt the learner stance, the learner's point of view. Someone who uses the behavior of others as a mirror to better understand themselves. It concerns the shadows that Jung talks about in psychology. It concerns the projection of our unconscious traumas and problems that we unconsciously projects to outside, and we think others are doing something, but instead, when we look in the mirror or when we look to others as a mirror, we try to understand, maybe this behavior that is so annoying to me, that is so difficult to accept, maybe this is something, why is this so important to me? Why this bothers me so much? And then start thinking what you have to change or what you have to work in yourself. The spiritual path means whenever something really irritates me or shocks me about someone else, I can only honestly ask, what is this revealing about me? This is not meant to generate guilt, but awareness, because guilt paralyzes, and awareness liberates and opens space for real change. I always say this to my children. Doesn't matter if how much you feel guilty, because you will just be there feeling guilt and not doing anything to change the situation. The awareness, which is the conscious you have about something, or the regret you have from something you did, will liberate you, and it will open space for a real change, because then you will be conscious of what you did and how much you were wrong, or how much you can change, or how you can choose it differently. So you will not be paralyzed, but instead you will act and do some real change. Spiritually, it is an exercise in humility, recognizing that we are all in process, all of us. We are all beings in evolution, and that the other person is often an instrument of God to show us our spots within ourselves. Sometimes you have to live with a person that is difficult, or that is challenging, or that is bitter, or whatever else. And everybody um brings his background together. We have our backgrounds that forms us. We have our traumas. We have the problems we lived in our childhood. So each one of us are trying to learn or be better in our way. And if, like we say here, the other person will be an instrument of God, because this person will call your attention. What am I doing wrong, or why is this bothering me so much? Like I said, because depending on the behavior of the other person, somebody will feel bothered, and other people will just say, no, this doesn't bother me. I don't mind. This is not important for me. Because it will depend on what you have to learn, or what you are trying to learn better about yourselves. Here are some practical examples. We criticize those who are controlling, but often we silently try to control things through emotional blackmail, through silence, to playing the victim, or using shortcuts to make sure everything goes our way. We judge those who are proud. This is wrong. People are too proud. And we secretly feel superior for not being like them, falling into a more subtle pride, which is the spiritual pride. Sometimes we complain about those who don't listen to us, but we also criticize, we give unsolicited advice, or fail to offer others the same attentive listening that we would like to receive. So when you pay closer attention, you will see how many things you do from your side when you are criticizing others. Okay, the next teaching is a good man brings good things out of the good stored up in his heart. And an evil man brings evil things out of the evil stored up in his heart. For the mouth speaks what the heart is full of. This is something very important that Jesus said. The evil is not what goes out of one's mouth, but what goes in. So, what we cultivate inside. A heart overflowing in words. Words are like a thermometer of our inner state. What comes out of our mouths reveals what is more present within us: our fears, our beliefs, our resentment, as also our faith, our hope, and our love. Therefore, Inner change does not begin with external censorship. I cannot say that, but with a deeper care for the source of speech, which is the heart. When the heart is pacified, healed, and enlightened, words naturally become more fair, more serene, and more constructive. Then we have some daily exercises we can develop our attentiveness. Recognizing speech patterns without guilt, but with honesty. Recognize if you do some of these things. If you have automatic complaints, you are always complaining or criticizing or complaining about everything around you. If it's sunny, it's not good. If it's raining, it's not good. If it's snowing, it's not good, or whatever else you can find. Recognizing if you are using a lot of irony, harsh criticism, or hurtful jokes. If you have a habit of gossiping or commenting things that belittle others, if you are discouraging, using a lot of discouraging sentences like "it won't work," "you cannot do it," or "I am a lost cause," if you are constantly using negative sentences, it means you are fostering negative thoughts and feelings because like he said, like Jesus said, the mouth only speaks what the heart is full of. So consciously changing these speech patterns for seeds of light, meaning gratitude, for example, starting the sentence with something that acknowledges the good. I'm grateful for that I have a home to be protected from the cold. I'm grateful for having food in my table every day. I'm grateful for having friends. I'm grateful for being able to travel, whatever you feel. The simplest things are the ones we most forget to be grateful for. Or you can say, at least we learned that. Even when the situation is difficult or challenging, you can remember to say, at least we learned that. Words of encouragement, for example, words that lift you up or lift the others. You are capable of doing it. Shall we try another way? Or I am with you. This will transform the difficult moments in support and courage because you will not feel alone, and the other too. Respectful silence because sometimes it's not about words. When there is nothing good to add, silence can also be charity when it avoids unnecessary hurt. Silence is very important. Here is a little bit about the influence of thoughts and feelings. Thought is a creative force. You can create a new path with your thoughts. In the spiritual view, each thought is a form of energy that we release and that returns to us through the law of cause and effect. In psychology, we know that recurring thoughts generate beliefs and mental habits that guide our choices. So, repeated negative emotions shape the perispirit and make the body ill. Spiritism teaches that the perispirit records our emotional states. Perispirit is the sometimes called astral body. Is the original body that we come with from the spiritual world, and then this body will generate this physical body. There is, like we say, is the seat of the emotions, the feelings. Everything is on, like we used to learn. The brain, which is the physical part, it's not the mind. The mind is something that is not uh, really in this material world, is transcending this material world. So the perispirit is our original body, and it will be connected to the physical body, and this will be all the emotional states will be recorded on this body. So persistent resentment, hatred, and fear end up affecting the physical body because it will transform into a disease. Chronic stress and poorly processed emotions increase the risk of disease, especially cardiovascular and autoimmune diseases. Why do you think it's so common nowadays, autoimmune diseases? Fibromyalgia or ELA or other kinds of disease that are not very well explained by the medicine. They are called autoimmune because it's like you are attacking your own immune system. Sorry, autoimmune is because you are attacking your own immune system. That's why it's autoimmune. And this is totally connected to stress and poorly processed emotions because we don't have emotional education. We don't know how to deal with our emotions. We don't even know what we are really feeling sometimes because we were taught to suppress all of this. We were taught to learn mathematics, science, or to read or write or to make money, but none of us were taught how to deal with our emotions, how to understand better the feelings or process it. And that's not non-processed feelings and the stress, which is very common in our world, that will bring us these autoimmune diseases and diseases of the heart and all other kind of diseases. So the option is we have to cultivate elevated thoughts as an essential part of this transformation. This is not about naive positive thinking or new age stuff, but about educating the mind, replacing overthinking with prayer, reflection, and uplifting reading, observing one's own thoughts without bonding with all of them, and choosing time and again thoughts more aligned with love, gratitude, and trust in God. The challenges and reluctance along the way are very common. Pride, selfishness, and guilt are very, very common obstacles we will find in our lives every day. Spirituality or spiritually, pride and selfishness are identified by Kardec as the roots of many moral ills. In fact, Kardec says that selfishness and pride are the most dangerous and the biggest challenge humanity has. The challenges of overcoming pride and selfishness. Psychologically, they appear as defense mechanisms. Pride tries to protect wounded self esteem from the traumas and things we lived in our childhood or we bring from other lives. So when we try to protect our own self-esteem, sometimes we end up being a proud person more than we need. Selfishness tries to attempt to guarantee security, protect yourself, and protect your life. And guilt, when excessive, paralyzes, like I said before. Recognizing them without self blame is already a step towards healing. Pain is often the awakener of consciousness. The gospel, according to Spiritism, reminds us that pain has a pedagogical character. It draws attention to something that needs to be revealed, which means pain is not there to make us suffer. Pain is there trying to make us learn something and trying to draw our attention. In pain, remember, it's something that comes in different forms. It can be physical pain, it can be emotional pain, it can be solitude, it can be this low self esteem, it can be many different things that will cause pain. In psychology, crisis and suffering are seen as moments of psychic reorganization. What was hidden comes to the surface to be worked on. Also, falling is part of life. The important thing is to get up consciously. And that's why I brought this sentence from Thomas Edison, the guy that invented the electricity, the light. He said, I haven't failed 1,000 times. I've just discovered 1,000 ways that don't work. What is this if not faith? And also perseverance, because you're not concerned about how many times you made a mistake or how many times you failed, how many times you fall. You are only focusing on how many times you got up, how many times you tried again, how many times you tried to be a better person or to forgive or to learn or to overcome yourself to live in harmony with others. So remember that we are not perfect. And this sometimes toxic positivity that we live in our world, that everything has to be right and good and bright. Remember that falling is part of life. The important thing is to get up consciously. From a spiritual point of view, no one reincarnates to be perfect all at once. We are all in process of evolution. Neuroscience shows that new habits are built through repetition and correction, not immediate perfection. The essential thing is to recognize the mistake, to learn from it, and to start over with a bit more clarity and humility than before. This is the most important thing. This is the cover of my very, very old gospel according to Spiritism. I think I bought this in 1993. So I just brought this to illustrate. This is the river Jordan, where they say John the Baptist baptized Jesus. So it's important for the Christians. And this is an excerpt from the book saying, for men and women, it constitutes a code, a rule of conduct that encompasses all circumstances of private and public life. It is above all the infallible roadmap to future happiness, the lifting of a corner of the veil that conceals the future life from us. The moral aspect, which demands self improvement from each individual. This part is what will be the exclusive subject of this work. So, when Kardec created this book, this was his intention. The moral aspect of the words of Jesus, which demands self improvement from us, this part will be the exclusive subject of this work. Then there is another book, which I don't know if they have in English, which is Jesus and the Gospel in the Light of Deep Psychology. This was written by Joana de Angelis through Divaldo Franco. And she says, humanity would never again experience days like those in which he, Jesus, was with his creatures, suffering with them and loving them, helping them and understanding them while taking examples from nature and in his incomparable style, singing the extraordinary melody of the good news, the Evangelion, the Gospel. And even today, his voice reaches the ears of all those who suffer or who aspire to the ideals of beauty and happiness and desire better days, encouraging them to continue their task and to strive for self improvement, aspiring to fullness, which is very beautiful. So we are coming to the end of our study, but we still have a few things that are important to say. So summarizing the speeches and the teachings of Jesus, we can have some practice from them. For example, the kingdom of God is within you. The faith that the source is within us. We don't start from scratch, nor from total darkness. There is a divine spark in each one of us. Inner change is trusting that this light exists and can be nurtured even amidst our shadows. The virtues to refine on this teaching are self knowledge, noticing your inner movements, thoughts and feelings and impulses. Inner recollection, learning to return to your conscience where the divine laws are written. Watchfulness and prayer, which in Portuguese we use a lot, which is vigiar e orar. Steady attention, not anxiety. Trust and serenity, faith that grows in silence and consistencies. This kingdom of God is within you will challenge our constant need for external validation, our spiritual relentlessness, and our distraction as well. And the daily practice I suggest is 2 minutes for us to be in silence and ask, what is my conscience asking of me today? And then you can choose one concrete act. Choose one inner correction. You can choose to correct your tone, your impatience, your pride, your resentment, whatever you are struggling with. The next saying is, where your treasure is, there your heart will also be. This will help us reorienting our priorities. Changing our life is not changing just the circumstances. It is changing what we consider sacred, exchanging the idolatry of appearance and pride and advantage for the value of truth, peace, and love. The virtue we will try to refine by learning this is detachment, using things without being used by them, simplicity, fewer excesses and more presence, integrity, coherence between values and daily choices, charity, making love of neighbor your investment, generosity as well. And the challenge this teaching will try to let us learn is greed, compulsive acquisition, anxiety about status and security, and divided heart. And the daily practice is for you to track your treasure for a week, for example, where your time, attention, and money go. And ask yourself, what did I feel today? Did I feel more ego or more spiritual? And choose one small shift. 10 minutes less of distraction, 10 minutes more of study, prayer, or service. These are just suggestions because sometimes we need to have a comparison in our mind. We have a direction to follow. The next one is, why do you see the speck in your brother's eye and you don't see the log in your own eye? This is changing. Instead of wasting energy pointing out the other problems or mistakes, we have to see them as mirrors. This will try to develop our humility, seeing our own imperfections without drama or denial, learning indulgence, which is understanding other struggles and stage of evolution, benevolence, wishing and doing good even when it's not returned to you, forgiveness, which is releasing the need to punish or to be always right. It will challenge our judgmentalism, our projection, our moral superiority, our nit nitpicking others, like always paying attention to what others are doing to avoid your own self-work. And the daily practice will be, before correcting someone, ask what log, what plank in me is being activated. For example, if you get furious at someone's arrogance, The log, which means the problem that you have in yourself and you cannot see, might be your own pride or your sensitivity to feeling disrespected. If you judge someone for being lazy, the problem you have in yourself might be your fear of losing control or your perfectionism. If you criticize someone's dishonesty, you can have, it might be your tendency to hide feelings or protect your image. So, psychologically, we have a lot of layers that we can understand. The next one, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, will try to teach us faith with reason, confidence anchored in understanding, not in blind belief, perseverance, continue even when results are still invisible, patience with yourself, progress is gradual, relapse is not a defeat, like Edison did. Failing sometimes cannot mean you will never succeed. Moral courage, which is doing the right thing in small daily choices. It will challenge our discouragement, our perfectionism. Only big faith counts. And our fear of starting. A daily practice would be you choose one mustard seed act, for example, one tiny discipline choice of silence instead of reacting, of kindness instead of sarcasm, of honesty instead of your image projected to the outside. The next one is the mouth speaks from what fills the heart, and we are coming to the end. Virtues to refine here will be purity of heart, sincerity plus good intentions, watchfulness over thought, a mental hygiene, what you watch, repeat, fantasize, and ruminate. These are very important choices you have to make every day. Instead of watching violent movies or reading something that is not important for your own development, you change this and then you will have other things going around your mind. The gentleness, which is firmness without harshness, and truthfulness with charity, speaking truth to heal, not to wound or to criticize. This saying will challenge the gossip, which is something very common in many of our lives, the harshness, the sarcasm used as armor, and double mindedness, or meaning nice words covering a bitter heart. The daily practice proposed to this is in its remembering us actually that speech is a leakage from the inner world. So the real work is inner cultivation. What you allow to inhabit your thoughts will shape your words and vibrations. When you catch a sharp word rising, look underneath. What feeling is asking for healing? And also use a filter. Is it true? Is it useful? Is it kind? If not kind, ask what pain or fear is pushing this. Then, to conclude our study, we can say that life is urgently calling us. The world's pain, the conflicts, the crises, all the difficulties we see around ourselves and in other countries. All of this is a silent plea for each of us to do our inner work. The good news is that no one is alone in this. We have Christ as our model, we have spirituality as our support, and our own conscience as our guiding light. Let this moment of reflection on the teachings of Jesus be the beginning of a cycle in which our inner light, however small, however wavering, let its light shine a little brighter. Inner change is this: walking, falling, getting up, learning, and with each turn being a little closer to the love for which we were created. And that was our study for today. Here we have some literature, some references. If you need, Christiane can send it to you. Thank you for being with me today, and I hope you have questions. We can stop recording now, and then you can have questions or you can ask whatever, if I can answer.